Jnanakosha, Puranas.
सर्गच्च प्रतिसर्गच्च वंशो मन्वन्तराणि च वंशानुचरितं चैव पुराणं पञ्चलक्षणम्.
Agni Purana, Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is a very powerful incantation. The human body has many veins. Out of these, 10 veins are important and their names are Ida, Pingala, Shushumna, Gandhari, Hastijwa, Prita, Yasha, Alambusha, Puha, and Shakini. These veins bear the breath of life. The breath of life is called Pranavayu. Apart from Pranavayu, 9 other major breaths course through the human body. Their names are Apana, Samana, Udana, Vayana, Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. Gayatri is a goddess worshipped even by Vishnu and Shiva. This goddess is there everywhere, even in every individual's heart in the form of a swan. Gayatri mantra is an incantation to the goddess. If one chants the mantra 7 times, one's sins are forgiven. Chanting it then gives times means that one attains Swarga. To attain world's lokas, which are even more desirable than Swarga, one has to chant Gayatri mantra 20 times. If one chants the mantra 108 times, if one chants the mantra 108 times, one does not have to be born again. The severest of sins like killing cows, Brahmanas or parents are forgiven if one chants the mantra 1,000 times. Gayatri mantra has always to be preceded by the chanting of the sacred word Om. The king. The king's duties are many. He has to punish his enemies, ensure the prosperity of his subjects, and arrange that his kingdom is ruled well. He has to protect the sages who perform tapasya inside the boundaries of his kingdom. A king should appoint a wise Brahmana as his priest. His minister should also be wise, and his queen should be a woman who follows the path of dharma. When a king dies, time must not be wasted. The priest must immediately find an auspicious occasion so that a new king can be appointed and crowned. A kingdom can never be without a king. Before the coronation, a prospective king has to purify himself by rubbing his body with mud. Mud from a mountain peak is used for the ears, from a Krishna temple for the face, from an Indra temple for the back, from a palace for the chest, mud raised by an elephant's tusks for the right hand, mud raised by the bull's horns for the left hand, mud from a yajna for the things, and from a cowshed for the feet. After the king has thus rubbed himself with different forms of mud and purified himself, he is ready to be anointed. 4 types of ministers will appoint him. Brahmana ministers with golden vessels full of clarified butter will stand off the eastern side. Kshatriya ministers with silver vessels full of sweet and thickened milk will stand on the eastern side. Vaishya ministers with copper vessels full of curds will stand on the western side, and Shudra ministers with earthen vessels full of water will stand on the northern side. The priest will then use material from all 4 directions to anoint the king. Water from all the places of pilgrimage will be poured on the king's head and throat. There must be songs and musical instruments must be played. The king will next pray to Brahma, Vishnu, Indra, and the other gods. He will look at a mirror, some clarified butter, and the various signs of good omens that have been placed all around. The king will then be crowned and introduced to his ministers, advisors, and guards. The priest will be given cows, goats, buffaloes, and houses by the king. He will also bow before the Brahmins. After all these ceremonies have been completed, he truly becomes the king. He circles the fire, touches his guru's feet, and with all his soldiers goes out on a procession through the streets so that his subjects can see him. At that time, the king must be seated either on an elephant or a horse. After the procession is over, the king may return to his palace. The king has to appoint many officials. The general has got to be a Brahmana or a Kshatriya. The charioteer must know about horses and elephants, and treasurer must be familiar with the different jewels. There has to be a doctor, a keeper of elephants, a keeper of horses, a captain for the palace, and another captain for looking after the women of the royal household. Each person must be appointed to the job which suits his expertise and temperament best. Anyone thus appointed by a king has to stick to certain rules. He must always obey the king's orders and must never do anything that is contrary to the king's commands. In public, he must always say pleasant things to the king. If there are any unpleasant utterances to be made, they have to be made in a private audience with the king. Those who serve the king must not be thieves, nor must they ever insult the king. They will not dress like the king, nor will they become too intimate with the king. They must not divulge royal secrets. For a fort, the king should choose a place that cannot readily be attacked by enemies. The king should give up hunting